I was tagged in this now deleted Reddit post. I know it has been circulating, but we might as well go ahead and laugh in my communities as well. It says, advice needed. I voted for Trump. My wife sent me divorce papers. What do I do? I didn't even know it was possible to be served divorce papers this quickly. I don't even know what to say. I'm shocked I married somebody willing to throw away our entire life over politics. Last week we were happy. Today we're getting divorced. She won't have a discussion. She says nothing will change her mind. Insists she's going to report my parents because they live off of disability, but my dad does some cash work auto repair. So now I'm worried for my whole family. She wants me to buy her out of the house. We have $300,000 in it, plus built a 4-bay garage since we bought it 3 years ago. I can't afford that. When I told her this, as she was packing her things, she says, "I guess you're going to really find out how it feels to be effed by a Democrat." um, ETA, her name is on the deed, but not on the mortgage. I am not confident that I can reason with her. What do I do? Where do I start? How do I fix this? Is anybody else experiencing this in the wake of the election results? First of all, if she had divorce papers ready that quickly, you were not happy last week. There is no way that you were happy last week and then the next day she had divorce papers ready. So like the whole thing about men being blindsided by divorce is so silly. At some point these men, regardless of elections and all that, regardless, sometimes these men will have to start actually paying attention to what is going on with their relationships. And also, these people are hypocrites, living off a disability. So you're getting some money from some taxpayers and you're making money as well. Absolutely not. She definitely should be reporting these people. So I have no, yeah. And then, now he's in the find out stage, talking about now he has to figure out the financial situations of separating, disentanglement. I'm sure he asked, is anybody else dealing with this? And a lot of people are definitely dealing with this. This political season has been quite contentious, and I don't foresee it getting any better. I think that we're going to see a lot of breakups before the end of the year because we can see the writing is on the wall. And I do believe that the election was the impetus for women to get out of relationships that they don't see themselves being in forever because they don't want to be connected forever now. Election season has transformed into find out season. So the post might be gone, but the comments are still there. Used condom taster? What kind of name is that? Said she had them, as in the divorce papers, ready to go, my dude. She knew. Exactly. She knew. And why didn't he know that there was trouble in his marriage? The guy that this is says making sure she gets it in while she still can. Um, this person says beat the rush. Smart woman. Me, 81 says he should probably tell her to calm down and make him a sandwich. That'll do it. The person at the bottom says he can try the new slogan, your body, my choice. Yeah, slogans are definitely probably work, kind of. Old poster says, yeah, there's way more to this. Headline, clueless a-hole blames divorce on Trump vote. Also, we have 300,000 in it, plus built a 4-bay garage since we bought it 3 years ago. I can't afford that. Looks like you've way overextended yourself. 4-bay garage, was it to house your over-leveraged Maserati collection? This person says maybe for his father to work on disability and not get caught. This person at the bottom says, so his father is one of those freeloaders that Trump despises. Huh, karma. You have different values. Trump vote was the last straw. I'm not going to do a lot of these comments. I just wanted to make sure that we saw the post and we all laughed as we laugh at these people because they certainly deserve it. But you all weigh in. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. This post is a doozy. It's a doozy. It was posted in the Leopards Ate My Face. Let me get through this title. It says former GOP Representative Michael Grimm, who voted against the Affordable Care Act, turns to GoFundMe to cover his medical bills after being paralyzed in horse riding accident while playing polo. So this rich man has enough money to have a horse riding hobby and doesn't have enough money to pay for being paralyzed. Ain't that something? And he said that folks that wanted affordable care, they shouldn't have it. So he's going to have to figure something out. But we'll offer concepts of thoughts and prayers. And I do have mugs available. I'll make sure to put the link in the comments. But that's about it. He doesn't get actual thoughts and prayers because he voted against the ACA. And obviously, this man had enough money to go out and play polo or do polo or whatever you're supposed to do, ride horses. And horse riding is an expensive hobby. Let's get to this article, though. Former Staten Island Representative Michael Grimm paralyzed after horse riding accident. Former South Shore City Councilman Vincent Ignazio, who now serves as Deputy Executive Director of the New York City Board of Election, took to Facebook to encourage prayers and a donation for Grimm. Ignazio posted a link to Help Michael Grimm Walk Again GoFundMe page that already has over $15,000, and the goal is $2.5 million. Ignazio's post explained that Grimm needs help to cover the substantial cost that insurance doesn't cover. Okay, well, he does have insurance and that's good, but it seems like maybe he's going to have to sell his ponies and equipment and all of that and get himself up to the 2.5 million because Americans of right now, the economy is tough and it's about to get tougher. So I don't know where he's going to get this money from. Ignazio called Grimm a great friend and a great patriot, saying Staten Island always steps up when someone is in need, and I'm hopeful they do the same for a former congressman and friend, Michael Grimm. The GoFundMe description reads as follows: Our friend, former Marine, FBI agent, U.S. Congressman Michael Grimm, if he was all of that, why doesn't he have more money? Was paralyzed following a devastating accident when thrown from a horse in September 2024. He has been in the most devastating situations, and through the grace of God, Mr. Grimm has miraculously threaded the needle to survive. Yet his ongoing care and the treatment to walk again will cost millions of dollars. Skip down a little bit. For a man who has dedicated his life to helping others, we now humbly ask that you give generously to help him and share with others who may. Grimm has long been an avid horseman, frequently posting to social media about his time spent at stables and playing polo. Grimm represented Staten Island and parts of Brooklyn in the House of Representatives from 2010 to January 2015, when he resigned following a federal indictment related to fraudulent practices okay, I'll stop. At an Upper East Side health food restaurant Grimm partially owned. So he's a liar and a fraudster. What? And he said no to the ACA during his time in the House of Representatives. So keep that in mind. He said, y'all don't deserve to have affordable health care. So I think that people need to just keep their money, but that's me. We'll also highlight right here. Ultimately, the former congressman pleaded guilty to one count of tax evasion and served 7 months in prison before being released in 2016. Y'all better keep those thoughts and prayers and just give him a concept of a thought and prayer, because absolutely not. And like Haskap says, has he thought about selling his polo ponies? Yes, he has an expensive hobby. There's some money to be made somewhere. But Open Perception has a really good idea. I'm sure if he stopped eating out and cut back on his avocado toast, he can save some money. He should also cut back on Starbucks. I heard that is where a lot of millennials went wrong. Starbucks and avocado toast. Dr. Nguyen says maybe he should try crowdfunding through a trust fund baby network instead. Incognimius says he just needs to stand up for himself and pull himself up by the bootstraps. People are being mean. That was mean. That was really mean. Altruistic text says the correct comment, cruel, dark humor, but deserved for any Republican who voted against making healthcare affordable for all Americans. You reap what you sow. Galatians 6 and 7. That verse is found in the Golden Trump Bible too. You reap what you sow. Exactly. Um, Trust me when I say that my field of F's lie fallow for a person that would say no affordable health care for you, but I'm going to be a fraudster, I'm going to steal, and I have expensive hobbies. He's going to have to make a list of his rich friends and go figure something out. But that's what I say. What do you say? Join the conversation. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. This post is important and people need to know what's coming down the line. If you're on my YouTube page, you might end up seeing this twice, once on its own and once in my Reddit mashup that I do. So just keep that in mind. Don't be confused if you see this twice. Our healthcare system has been broken for a while, and COVID highlighted the cracks in the system. And now I do believe that it's about to crumble, and people really need to be aware of what's going on. This woman posted this in Economic Collapse. It is a long write up, and I'm going to get through this with you. She says, you need to prepare for the collapse of the U.S. emergency medical system. She says, hi, I'm an ER nurse, and I want to talk about what you can expect to come in the arena of emergency medicine in the United States, because I think it's important that we are all well informed on how grim the future looks for every American. I posted a musing on this over on the nursing subreddit, but decided it needed a full write up because this is something that will affect every single person who may have a medical emergency and doesn't have their own concierge health team. Unfortunately, of course, emergency services have never been a profit generating system. Because of this, the stark truth is that most hospitals and most communities, left to their own devices, wouldn't even provide emergency services, which is why closing a hospital in a rural community can be a death sentence for so many. This is why organizations that provide emergency care rely largely, I dare say almost entirely, on federal dollars and regulations for the things that we do, from 911 centers to EMS and fire rescue departments to Medicaid, Medicare, ACA dollars and regulations to laws like EMTALA, the Emergency Medical Team Treatment and Labor Act of 1986, signed into law by that notorious socialist Ronald Reagan. It all governs and affects our ability to provide care to you. For instance, EMTALA stipulates that we have to treat all patients regardless of their ability to pay, which, while being an unfunded mandate that has probably cost an aggregate of multiple trillions of dollars over the last 40 years, is still a good thing. People forget that prior to EMTALA, you could literally be in active labor or bleeding to death, and if you couldn't pay, the emergency department could legally turn you away, and often did. I'd be mulling over writing something like this, but had ultimately demurred. There are hard rules in this sub in reposting about politics, about conspiracies, etc. And while this post is neither, I'm certain there'll be a flood of people who mark it as such. And I didn't want to write all this out to have it yanked for that reason. Then I read that the richest person in the world joined on a national security call for no apparent reason. If there was any doubt in my mind that that person would be a key player in setting policy very, very soon, it ended right there. And that person has pledged to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget, alongside the admission that everyone is going to have to hurt for at least the next 2 years. That means many things are going to happen, none of them good. When the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid, Medicare are gutted and or repealed entirely, tens of millions of people, if not more, will lose their ability to access primary and specialty care. That diabetic or dialysis patient that is managing with quarterly appointments, the person getting regular skin checkups once a year for melanoma, the person who is having weird right lower quadrant pain, unbeknownst to them, appendicitis, who would call their family doc to check them out? They're not going to have access to that, to any of that anymore. Interestingly, this is why Monday is generally considered to be the worst day of the week in the ER. Everyone who couldn't see their non ER providers over the weekend tough it out until they can see someone on Monday. That provider discovers this patient is now in dire straits and refers them immediately to the ER, which totally slams us. Now, imagine that multiplied by a factor of 10 every single day without end. Let me outline the scenario for you. You break your arm, or you have a kidney stone, or your mother falls and breaks her hip. First, you call 911, and if you can get through, you might find it's literally hours before an ambulance can pick you up. The ability of that fire or rescue department to continue operating has been jeopardized by the loss of federal funding. What little funding they have left means that, particularly in rural communities, one ambulance may have to cover the area of a small European country. And it doesn't matter how many ambulances you have, you can't run them without maintenance and crews to operate them provided by federal dollars. Instead, you manage to get to the ER, where you find the waiting room has spilled into the parking lot. The harried triage nurse you find is actually a basic EMT who has 20 hours of training and just qualified for their boards. Since overtime pay was fundamentally changed, the required hours per week raised from 40 to 50 and requiring overtime pay to be calculated over a cumulative month instead of a week. There are no experienced ER nurses to staff the triage full time. You find out there have been people waiting for 12 hours and longer to be seen. There is no triage nurse available. The inpatient units in the hospital haven't been able to keep nurses on for staffing, meaning that it doesn't matter how many beds there aren't nurses to see those patients. The nurses that are left are watching a staggering 6 to 10 patients each, who they aren't able to keep up with as it is. In a cascading effect, that means anyone in the ER who needs to be admitted to the hospital has to wait until a bed comes open, which now may be days, if not longer. So you'll sit in the waiting room for hours. I don't know if you've had a kidney stone, but every woman I've seen who has had both those and given birth have said kidney stones are worse. If it's your mom with a broken hip, she'll lay on an ER cot in a waiting room with everyone else in agony and incontinent because she can't even move her hip to pee in a bedpan. What? You might say, you can't make people wait that long for serious stuff. Well, they're not going to have a choice. This is exactly what happened during the height of COVID. This is why places where it was the worst, like Florida, were offering ER and COVID ICU travel nurses up to a staggering $250 an hour. This time, though, there'll be no federal COVID support to pay those nurses. The exact opposite, in fact. You'll sit there waiting alongside a 42-year-old gentleman whose face is ashen. He lost his health insurance coverage and couldn't see a PCP or dermatologist, which is worrying because this morning he discovered a multicolored and very weird asymmetrical mole on his back, which he's going to find out is malignant melanoma that's already metastasized. I know I fumbled that. When it could have been lopped off at stage IA for $100 in health insurance copay and a pathology test. You'll watch as a 56-year-old lady gets wheeled back urgently, furious that you're having to wait and they don't, not realizing that person is a diabetic who has no access to insulin, who is in diabetic ketoacidosis. Her blood sugar is now around 1200 at the moment. She won't make it to the ICU. They'll have to put her on a breathing machine in the ER and hope she doesn't die before an ICU bed comes open. The ICU, which normally operates on one nurse to one patient ratio, is running around 4-to-1 at the moment. You gaze nervously at 2 kids, a brother and a sister by the look of it, fidget and itch and scratch the red-brown blotches that seem to begin at their hairline and extend down their face to their body. You don't know what that is because you've never actually seen measles before. And you also don't know that it's an airborne disease and significantly more contagious than the flu or COVID. They probably shouldn't be sitting in a packed waiting room filled with sick and immunocompromised people, but they are. You vaguely hear screaming from the back, which you have no way of knowing is the husband of a mother who was rushed into ER, unconscious, her untreated preeclampsia becoming worse and contributing to her throwing an amniotic fluid embolism into her lungs, requiring the ER staff to do an emergency C-section, not in the OR, but at the bedside in the ER, with time of the essence for any chance to save the baby, with blood flowing by the leader onto the floor Frazzled ER nurses are using their own hands as pressure bags to push uncross-matched blood through an IV in a desperate but ultimately futile attempt to save the mom. If you have a kidney stone, you might get seen sooner, 4 or 5 hours instead of 12 or longer, but by an MP or PA who is exceptionally talented but has had a patient load of 3 to 4 times what their normal busy day was. You get a prescription for narcotics and nothing more, and will be sent out the door. If you're there because your mom fractured her hip, well, eventually she'll get seen and medicated into oblivion with narcotics. But hours later, when the ER doctor has a chance to touch base with you, she'll tell you x-rays say she not only broke her hip, but her pelvis, and that if or when she gets an inpatient hospital bed, they will have to discharge her back to total care unit if space is ever available, and entirely at your expense. Except the case manager that would have helped you find somewhere for your mom to go after being discharged, a short-term disability facility, rehab, etc., is gone. The federal funding for her job is gone. Not only the funding to pay her, but all of the assistance to find the exact kind of help your mom is going to need. Mom's your problem now. You're going to have to take her home. You're going to have to turn her. You're going to have to put her on a bedpan 6 to 8 times a day or more because there simply isn't help out there anymore to do anything else. But don't worry, after all, Elon said everyone is going to have to hurt for 2 years. Well, the 2 years of pain is enough to make American nurses and doctors not want to be nurses or doctors anymore, not in those kind of conditions. The crisis of not enough nurses or doctors worsens after systemic effort to root out the woke mind virus, craters funding to colleges and universities across the country. The best and brightest have fled to the EU, to Australia. Heck, even Dubai is offering unheard incentives for talented American providers, wanting to take the best and brightest away while they can. Even if the flip switches magically at the 2-year mark, the damage done will last a generation. Whether you realize it consciously or not, emergency services are something you consider every single day. Are you looking at buying a house, going hiking in the mountains, driving to work, taking your kids to soccer practice, letting your elderly parents or grandparents live on their own, live in their own home? You rely on the safety net my colleagues and I in emergency services provide. We're a foundational part of what makes modern life possible. If you can't rely on it, you're going to have to make some very hard choices in the very near future about what you need to do to keep you and your family safe. If a system that every American relies on is going to collapse, if we can't rely on it, you need to know about it so you can see this through going forward, so you can do the very best you can by you and your family. And I wanted to sit here and read this whole thing because what this emergency nurse said is going to impact all of us. Some of us have our eyes wide open about things to come. Some people are too busy gloating now that their side won. And I put won in quotation marks because what we're about to experience is not a win. It's going to run doctors and nurses off. It was running doctors and nurses off in those forced birther states where they can get jailed for helping women having a medical emergency. So people better keep this in mind and really figure out where they want to live, how they want to live, how they're going to live and eat. Do they have money? Do they know some basic CPR and EMT skills? This is about to impact a lot of us, so people better buckle up. These videos are serious, but please share them. Somebody might watch them, so please share. Join the conversation, like, comment, share. If you made it this far and you're not yet following, go ahead and